Hello, Galaxy! I'm Chris Pirillo, and I'm an expert in being myself. I love sharing my advice, my opinions, my perspectives, my experience, my ideas with you, the greater part of my community who do care to listen to everything that I happen to share, especially when I'm streaming this kind of stuff live on Twitch, as I do every night at 6 p.m., and then clip out the advice stuff and post it specifically into this channel. I am also aware that I may say things that you might not agree with. That's okay. One size definitely does not fit all, and you may even have other ideas. But let's go ahead and expand the conversation. Thanks again for liking the video, commenting, and of course, paying attention to what I say, rather than just commenting before you've had a chance to hear me out. Hear me out. I know that many of us, as adults, have to deal with work. I would assume most of us have to deal with work, unless, of course, we were born into a family that, afforded us the opportunity to never have to work. I was not. I feel that most of us were not, and I feel good for that, because I was able to build a work ethic. No one really told me that I had to do it. I just knew I had to do it. I had this not just the sense of responsibility, but certainly a sense of accomplishment of a job well done, knowing that I executed something and completed the task to whatever degree of satisfaction the task would necessitate. And these days, work is increasingly becoming non-traditional. Even, back in the mid-90s when I started Locker Gnome, I started at a time when the internet was barely commercial. It was just beginning to take off, right? And websites really weren't there. I mean, they kind of were, but scattershot. It wasn't what it was. Or today is certainly different than it was, but I don't need to give you a history lesson there. So I very much fell into a non-traditional kind of experience and role and carved it out, and that was both awesome and frightening at the same time. So when it came to getting work done, when I was my own boss and I drove my own destiny, I knew what needed to be done, and I knew the consequences for when something didn't get done. But I still at times had the propensity for getting overwhelmed. I had too many tasks on my plate. So I wanted to lay down a few possibilities for how you can keep from being overwhelmed at work. And I'm going to dip into again, my experience, working for other people as well as working for myself. The bottom line is you got to know your own limits, and you've got to be able to set your own limits. Don't task yourself and overtax yourself. You've got to maintain a healthy pace, whatever that is for you. And you're doing too much when the things you set out to do, you're not completing. That's how you know. That's the only way you know. Because if you take on a responsibility that you don't see all the way through, you've effectively dropped the ball. And that's not good in any scenario, no matter how you slice it. So then you have to reflect upon what brought you to that point and why and how you could avoid it in the future. Because if you just continue to overwork yourself and overtax yourself with any amount of responsibilities, you're never going to escape it. You may have to pull back the reins, or the responsibilities you're taking, and maybe you're way over your head, which is easy to do when you're as short as I am. Taller than some, shorter than others. But when you've got an understanding of what needs to be done and an understanding of how much time it may take to complete a task, you have a better understanding of whether or not you are going to succeed at completing the task or potentially not. And if there's a chance that you won't complete the task before you even begin, that's when you have to learn to say no. It's easier to say no when you work for yourself. If you work for somebody else, you have to figure out how to make it work, and you have to learn how to rely on others, and certainly your team, and I hope your team is supportive. But especially when that task comes from the outside, that responsibility comes from the outside, and it's going to be an overwhelming, a daunting task to you, it's okay to say no in certain circumstances. It's okay to tell somebody that you are not sure if you have the bandwidth, the mental bandwidth, the capacity to handle what you're handling now as well as other things. Because the worst thing you can do in that scenario is say yes. Even if you're a people pleaser. Even if you hate saying no, you hate disappointing people, I'm telling you, if you say yes, and there's a chance you won't complete the task, without overburdening yourself, you're going to wind up in a very tricky situation. And I'm sitting here telling you it's okay to say no. You got to set boundaries. You know where your boundaries are. You know how much time you have in the day. Spend it wisely. Don't waste it. And that does not mean that you don't need to take time for yourself, because that's the next thing I was going to mention in terms of not being overwhelmed with work. It's not just task management and understanding what you can and cannot accept, because you can't do everything. You really got to remember that when you work for yourself. You cannot do everything. Don't try it. Take breaks. It sounds so easy. It sounds routine, but you got to build them in. You got to bake them into your day. You have to. I mean, I have a certain routine in the average day, and I've been doing this for a number of years. No matter what I've been doing, I try to set some kind of pattern that I can fall into, something that's predictable. So setting up predictable patterns for yourself helps other people understand what you're doing at any given moment, especially if your life is chaotic otherwise. But more importantly, it gives you a chance to rest and relax and clear your head in one way, shape, or form. But you have to bake that in. You have to be consistent in that. So I have a certain construct by which I have errands that I do, like over my basically my lunch break, and that's when I get in all my steps. So here I am today. I've got 12,000 steps. Get all my steps in. Get my exercise. Take care of tasks, and so I'm being productive, even if I'm not working. Because if I'm just sitting at a computer screen all day long, first of all, that's not good for you. Human beings we did not evolve specifically to sit in front of computer screens. I know you're disappointed to hear that, but nor are we, born to have our faces planted, in front of a phone screen, any kind of screen. You got to get out. You got to move. And that doesn't mean have an outdoor activity. Like I said, I just do, I do walking and I do errands. I could easily stay at home and shift my attention to a puzzle or a Lego set or something that just gets my mind off of that work that otherwise I've got to pay attention to, because I find that the quality of work that I do, when I've given myself time to take those rests, mindless activities, sorting through laundry, cleaning things up, doing the dishes, mindless tasks that are productive, I find that when it comes time to apply myself at work, and I use that in air quotes because I've always worked remotely, in getting my job done, I'm more effective, as opposed to spending the same amount of time, not taking a break, and getting the same amount of work done. Because I've had a chance to maybe think about a task in the back of my mind, process it, and then when it comes time to actually get it done, I already know what I'm going to do. I've got my plan, and then I just execute the plan. And it's a lot easier than just sitting there and doing nothing, because that's not work either, which I think is what has a lot of management nervous these days with the remote working thing. Like, they're nervous because did they really think that we're effective sitting in cubicles and meetings all day long? Is that what we were born to do? Is that fun? I'm not saying that work has to be fun, but that's another tip I might throw in there. Try to make it fun. Try to find fun things that you can extract. Find something fulfilling from work if it is absolutely possible to do. I don't know what you do. I know what I do. I know what I try to do. I know how I try to process things. But every day is a different day. So even if yesterday was not a good day for you, tomorrow can be a different day. Try something different tomorrow if you've been in a funk, if you've been stuck, because you can be overburdened with work, and only you are going to be the one to be able to tell the people who need to hear that what they need to hear. If you're finding yourself not as effective as you feel you could be if you had a bit more space, breathing room, bandwidth, taking care of fewer tasks better than taking care of more tasks, maybe 10% as well. So there are many ways that you can, many approaches you can take to not being overburdened or overworked. And I know that people out there are probably going to have different suggestions with experiences that they've had. Those have just been my experiences. And please, I'm interested because you might be able to, in this case, teach me something new.